going on? What's going on, everyone? What's going on? It is Tuesday morning. It is April 30th, 2019, last day of the month. Let's end this baby strong. All right, guys, we're gonna hop into this thing here. We got a little bit of action in the markets yesterday. Nothing too crazy. Actually, SPY did crack its all-time highs of 2018. So, as far as that is concerned, it's a little bit of action. Sector-wise, it was kind of split: four green, seven red. Financials led the way, but we have a few interesting plays going into this session this morning. We have a few continuations and some newbies on the watch list heading in. We got so far we got six on watch, but it's being said, let's get into this thing and kind of break this down real quick for everybody. So first up, we got Intuit, INTU. Obviously, as you can see, it had this serious gap down on Friday. Then yesterday in the market, obviously on Friday, as you can see, it had a gap down. Then it was on its way to fill that gap. Yesterday, it obviously closed almost down 6 points. That being said, it's not showing strong signs. If a stock's going to fill the gap, going to fill the gap. I mean, it's coming down 6 points, even at the price of this level. It leaves some room for questioning, right? So, obviously, when you have some big significant moves like this, you have some boys, dumping shares on the market, right? So, I still like this 240 level. Been talking about this for a while, and after a little bit of research on the weekend, we definitely continue to like this thing to the downside. Obviously, with that run up on Friday, after its gap down, it kind of put all those, downside opinions to the side. But after yesterday's behavior, you know what? It's not looking too solid to the upside right now. I think there's still plenty of room to the downside. I'm not sure that it's going to fill that gap just yet. I'm not sure it's done yet. I think shares are still going to be unloaded onto the market, and it's going to give some opportunities to step in and enjoy some of this ride. So that being said, we like this thing to the downside. Obviously, it's depending on how it's gonna how the market reacts to this thing after the bell, and if dust settles and you're still showing weakness, there's a strong downside move. There's plenty of meat on the bone to extract what you want out of this thing. All right, guys. So that's first up. Next up, we're gonna go to OLED. Universal actually, it had it's peaked out mid-April, and obviously has that gap down yesterday. And it's showing some weakness continuously, obviously from yesterday's gap down. Found a little bit of support, try to fight that VWAP. Late midday got stuffed out, and it's continued to the downside. So, like to another few points to the downside. I'm not sure that it's found support yet. And it's obviously trading around that 50-day on the daily. So that being said, definitely like this thing for a few more points to the downside if it shows weakness after the bell and after the dust settles. So let's continue with that. Triple M, 3M company, MMM. As you can see, it had a significant gap down on the 25th, and it's just been trading sideways. It's one of these things that, it's not, there's a lot of questionable catalysts out right now. So, is it going to continue? Is it going to hold? Is it going to put support? Is it going to start filling this gap? If it was going to fill this gap, I think it would already have happened by now. So there's a lot of questioning going on. I think there's a lot of funds looking at this thing. Is it, if it's going to maybe, put some more shares in the market? Is it going to fill this gap? What's it going to do? And right now, it's just kind of up in the air. So that being said, with the way it's been behaving in the market past few days, I'm going to keep a close eye on this thing. Putting in lower highs and lower lows definitely is a trigger. After hours yesterday, it had some movement to the downside. So, if it continues in that manner, and obviously, you're going to have some wild swings in this thing, but it has, almost 4.5 points ATR. So, where stock moves this way, obviously, the very popular stock 3M like this, you want to keep an eye on this thing. Trade 3.6 million shares yesterday. But, that being said, there's still some room. I'm not convinced this thing is ready to fill that gap yet. I think it's setting up for part 2 of its shares being unloaded on the market. So let's keep an eye on this thing. If it shows some weakness, stay diligent with your stops on this one. But if it definitely shows weakness to the downside, step in and see what they can offer. Next up, DORM. DORM, as you can see, had its gap down yesterday. Traded relatively weak throughout the day. Obviously down over 9%. Not done yet. Showed a little bit of weakness, looking like it could be a nice day 2 continuation for us. So, definitely a few more points to the downside, getting close to that 200 day on the daily. And if that's the case, we like it weakness after the bell, and we'll step in and see if we like this thing below VWAP. WC, Western Digital, had a little bit of action after market last night, and we'll see what the weakness is going into the open today, and see how the market reacts to this thing. So if it shows weakness, if it continues to after hours lows and breaches after hour lows, then obviously we'll step in. But we're gonna just sit back and watch to see how the market reacts to the news that came out last night. Last but not least, CGNX. CGNX took a bit of a trim last night after hours, and trading quite low. So we like this thing to the downside. Cracking through the 50 and 200 day is not a good sign, especially when it's been trading at relatively solid uptrend since the beginning of the year. Obviously, as you can see with its random pullbacks to the 50. But cracking through the 50 and the 200, showing some significant weakness. So definitely like this thing to the downside. Mid 43s is where we're at right now. So that's what we got going on. We like what we see. We're gonna stay diligent as we always do. Respect the stops. And as always, guys, if you see what we're doing here, you like what we're doing here, you want to see how we're trading these charts or any other charts, how we're picking our watch list, come check out the site, thestreettrading.com, and we'll sort you out on the 90-day course. All right, guys, have a great day in markets, and be patient with your setups.